transition into Alive.
All right.
Alive. All right. Go ahead and run the numbers. I guess I get to start, not by design either, but that'll be interesting. We probably should give a little we should probably give a little bit of context on Kiss too, because it's been a band we've talked about as a group quite a bit. But Matt, go ahead and run the numbers.
Is. All right, so Kiss Alive from 1975. This comes in at number 387 in the 1970s on Best Ever Albums, number 32 in 1975, number 1,954 of all time, and on Rolling Stone's list it comes in at number 305.
Well, Matt, you did such a good job of summarizing Aerosmith. Do you want to do the same thing with sort of some of the context of Kiss in terms of our journey? No, that's yours in terms of our relationship with Kiss as a three-person
Well,
entity.
I think it's no surprise to our listeners that the biggest Kiss fan on this podcast is John.
Yeah,
and,
he's in the Kiss Army for sure.
He is a member of the Kiss Army. And I think when we all met, Josh and I less so, and John, introduced us basically to Kiss. I think was it Kiss Gold? Was that what it was, John?
It was I started you guys with Kiss Gold, which was the one of the many keep saying many greatest hits albums that Kiss has.
So that's where I think I was, because I knew Kiss. I think growing up I knew them from Tears Are Falling. From the 80s Kiss, like
well, that was part of
Kiss.
the problem at the beginning. Yeah, Matt knew like Tears Are Falling and like Lick It Up.
Lick It Up.
Lick It Up.
And much like with Aerosmith, I told Matt, there's a whole nother era of Kiss, right? That's not that. Oh, I didn't know. Okay, what does that sound like? Okay, gotcha. Well, let me.
So John, so I knew. Anyway, that's kind of the history.
Yeah,
there.
I seem to remember listening to Kiss on our way to softball games.
Yes,
that's absolutely what we did. Yes,
I was basically indoctrinating you guys. Yes.
10 o'clock softball games on a Sunday night in January, when it was still like 70 degrees in Florida, because that's how we rolled.
I also remember our otherwise strongly feminist professor in the program.
Yes,
sharing with us one night that her first and perhaps one of her favorite albums of all time was Destroyer by Kiss, which was a remarkable moment of shock for me, because it did not seem like it would have locked in, but there it was, right in the proof of the pudding. So that also always made me laugh. So, okay, I guess I'll go into it, guys.
Well, so John, give us, how did you come to Kiss? I don't think I ever knew that.
So it wasn't a band in my teenage years that I really messed around with too much, because I think like I looked at Kiss and two things happened. Like, they look ridiculous in the context of the 90s, right?
Yes.
So it wasn't like the 70s Kiss where you're like, oh my gosh, like what's the mythology? By the 90s, they're kind of like, it's competing against like glam rock and others, and it doesn't seem as novel, I think, as probably it did in the 70s. So they were kind of there. I can remember them, being reunited. I think Tupac like introduced them at MTV Music Awards or something, and they closed the show, and it's kind of, that's very interesting. And so they were around, and I kind of knew about them. And obviously the first Kiss, I also saw like the paint was off, right? And so they'd become like, and so there wasn't, that. So that was the beginning. But then slowly but surely, Kiss kept coming up amongst people that I really liked as guitar players. And there was this very fascinating dichotomy between supposed serious music people and how much they despised Kiss, and musicians who played music that I liked and how much they loved Kiss. Because for every critic that would shit all over Kiss, there was like Rivers Cuomo talking about like his favorite band was Kiss and he played it constantly. It's like, that's very interesting. Or like Tom Morello, right, talking about how much they Kiss. And then like the Replacements would cover Kiss, and Nirvana would cover Kiss, and you're like, what is like, how can they be so, you know what I mean?
Different,
and so I was like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on. And then I started listening to the 70s albums by Kiss, and it was like, now I get it. This is fantastic. And I kind of realized, okay, this is one of those instances where Kiss is all of the things. They are both the bloated commercial, eventually kind of semi-pathetic band they were in the 80s, but they're also an influential guitar-driven band that are kind of like masters of stuff as well. And it can be both. I also have always thought that Gene Simmons doesn't get enough credit for being a pretty good bass player, because there's a lot of tasty bass lines in Kiss songs. And also, I like, even though Ace Frehley is what could generously be called a very straight ahead guitar player, like he's going to play like leads that are the leads, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to sound like, so they're not reinventing the wheel, but they are very melodic in their own way. And I think that it's not as easy to write a Kiss rock and roll song as people would like to believe it is. It's been shown by not many people write a lot of catchy songs, never mind like 30 catchy songs with that type of thing in rock. So there's a little context. I am a little disappointed we did Alive, because I actually like the studio albums. So this encapsulates the first 3 studio albums, which probably aren't even the most famous Kiss studio albums, because I think stuff like Destroyer and Love Gun and stuff like that would be more of the well-known stuff. I think this one covers I have to look it up. I think it covers the self-titled. I think it covers Dressed to Kill.
Yeah, Hotter Than Hell.
I think it might cover Hotter Than Hell too.
Yes.
Yeah, those are the 3 that are on this. So it's basically most of the songs from that. It does miss some songs I love from the early albums, like Goin' Blind, which is an awesome like sludgy guitar rock, but also absolutely ludicrous, because it's about like, I think it's like a 15-year-old girl in a relationship with like a 93-year-old man. It's utterly ridiculous.
Wow.
But it's this sludgy, like almost like Melvin's guitar, and that's not on here for obvious reasons. But some of those gems that I really love, like from those early albums, are not on this. This is a great primer to like what Kiss is like in concert, though, which I think is why this album's on here. So you don't realize how many of the cliches of big rock music are actually Kiss things until you listen to this. And even if you're aware of them, you may hear this and go, oh, that's like so like schlock, until you realize like, no, like it's them inventing like the, all right, are we feeling okay here in like Detroit? Like that's them. Like that's their lineage is that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Talking, yeah.
And like the showy drum stuff just to do a drum thing, even though it's not like there's so many elements of like what like mainstream rock stuff is that you almost can't recognize it as being influential and like what Kiss did until you listen to like albums up to 1975 and you go, yeah, nobody was doing any of this shit like in their studio stuff, like dressing up in face paint, like, playing like, basically pop songs as rock songs, doing like Paul Stanley's like ridiculous, like he doesn't, there's other albums that have even more stuff. All right, are we all grabbing a cold gin, like here, I want you to shake it up, which is hilarious because none of the members of Kiss, like the 2 main ones, don't drink either, which always makes me laugh. But like it's like, all right, I need you to shake up this thing. It's like so cheesy, but it's also like you can't help but smile, like, and like when you're in the crowd you're like, yeah, all this stuff, all the way down to like the ballads that Peter Criss sings, whether it be Beth or Hard Luck Woman. On this one, you've got Black Diamond. So from a sonic experience, is this like as good as the studio albums that are like the first Kiss album's like really murky production? It's actually kind of fascinating. And then the second one is like even more underproduced. And then they start getting like super glossy production with like, I think it's Hotter Than Hell is the third one. And then
it says I think Hotter Than Hell's the second one. At least
that's the one
Spotify.
Yeah, Hotter Than Hell is the really murky production. And Dressed to Kill, is that the third one? Yeah, that's the one where the production starts to step up. And then in between Dressed to Kill and Destroyer, there's another. Is it Rock and Roll All Night? Is that the album in between, the fourth album?
Oh, that doesn't show up on here.
It doesn't.
Let me look.
Okay, because I know this one was like what broke Kiss like big.
Love Gun.
Love Gun's after Destroyer. That's the album after Destroyer.
Yeah, it's
and
just
then
showing
Disco
those
Kiss.
3 albums and then Alive. So maybe there was a single or an EP or something. Let's see.
Okay, yeah, I'd have to look it up, but I feel like there's something in between there. But it's
Rock and Roll Over from 1976.
There we go, Rock and Roll All Over. That's the one I was trying to think of. But so from that end of things, I don't know if this is my favorite Kiss album because it's like it's them playing live, so it's not as tight as
Yeah.
their albums are, and it's not as glossy, and I do like a little bit of the sheen of Kiss, but yeah, it gives you a feel of what it's like to sit in the crowd in 1974 in Detroit, like Cobo Hall, right, and listen to what Rock and Roll All Night sounded like before Rock and Roll All Night became like a 40-year staple of rock when it was just being started. That's an initial baseline. I can go more and more into it, but I guess I don't know who's next. Is it Matt?
I think I'm next.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I think Kiss. Before John introduced me, to, full disclosure, this is definitely a band that I hated. Before John, I was always like rolling my eyes, like these yahoos. And I think one of the reasons, again, like Steven Tyler, I hated like Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons. Anytime you see them in an interview, you talk about guys that are like come off as like these arrogant, like we're on top, we're the best ever. Gene Simmons talks about Kiss like, and it's you can't tell if he's serious or not when he talks about like it's like no doubt we're the best band that's alive. It's Kiss. He just talks about Kiss like it's like a definitive statement there. And the other thing too is the amount of like just all they cared about. They certainly didn't do the drugs or the alcohol, but they certainly did the sex part of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll part. And like, was there like some documentary and stuff or whatever? And Paul Stanley's being interviewed, and he's just laying down like with his like flowing hair, and just all these women, like scantily clad women, just like right next to him in this
with his
bed.
gloriously hairy chest, which always makes you
and
laugh.
I'm just like, this is gross, right? So. So those guys have always rubbed me the wrong way. But then John's like, dude, you got to listen. And so you played Kiss Gold, and there were a number of songs on there that I really do like. And some of them are on here, like Deuce, like Strutter, Black Diamond in particular. That's a really cool guitar riff that they're doing there. Come On and Love Me's got a really good descending kind of note chorus where they're like, I saw her picture in a music magazine, and the guitar behind it. I really like that part. I think Kiss is the ultimate mixed bag band for me. I think when they hit, and it's not just on some of the rocking songs, like John mentioned Hard Luck Woman, which is kind of like a country rock song. And I was like, when I heard that, I was like, holy crap, that's a really good song. So they definitely have their moments. And I see what John's saying too. You're saying about you wish there was a studio album. Maybe that's more representative of stuff that you might like about them. I could probably see that happening too, because I really don't know their studio albums. I just know those singles that you were playing. But Kiss is a live band. That's one of the things that they are, big things that they are known for is the theatrics, right? John's mentioning the makeup, but it's just like it's the fireworks. It's Gene Simmons coming down on this cable with spitting blood out of his mouth, and just like these over the top costumes, and just this persona that like in the 70s was just like, what the hell is going on here? It just blew glam away, probably with just the theatrics behind it. So you get a feel for that here, and it is. And Paul Stanley is an absolutely ridiculous person, and all the, oh yeah, that's hotter than hell, and all this stuff. But John, yeah, you're probably right. That's where it kind of came from. And if you're seeing that live, they're performers, right? And that's one of the things to their credit. And that's one of the things that Simmons will say is, we're here to entertain. We're not here to be to be some snobby musician that's like going to be up the ass of some critic or something like that. We are here. Music is about entertainment. We want people to have fun. You're going to come to a show. You're going to get your money's worth when you go to a Kiss show. And I got to respect that. Like they are performers, and what's music and concerts if not escapism? And Kiss might be one of the ultimate forms of escapism for a live act, so they're just doing something totally different. So there's a lot of respect that I have for them in that regard, but I also think that there's plenty of songs in here where I'm like, this is another singles band. This is kind of going back to that. Like, I think the singles are great. There's plenty of songs on here that I'm like, Hotter Than Hell doesn't do a whole lot for me. Nothing to Lose doesn't do a whole lot for me. I think Parasite's got a cool,
they're much better on albums. I will say that.
Okay.
They're heavier and harder on the albums.
Maybe, but it's not even the production I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the structure of the song. It just does. Gotcha. It just seems kind of generic to me in a lot of places. I think Parasite that song has like a cool driving fast guitar part, and then the chorus I think is terrible. It's just it's a really lazy bad chorus. I thought it was. She wasn't a big fan of that, So, but but their songs that they hit, they hit really well for me. So. So yeah, I'm mixed on Kiss. I kind of roll my eyes at them, but I also respect what they do. I don't think every band needs to be this groundbreaking, genre bending, influential. Well, I mean, they are influential, but you don't need to do, break down any barriers in the studio to be a really good band. And I think one of the things I respect the most about Kiss is they own who they are. They don't apologize. This is who we are, and this is what we're going for. And they certainly at this time are doing it as well as anybody else that was doing that. So there's respect there. But as a fan myself, I would probably just stick to the singles, probably more the studio stuff. That's the other thing too. This is long. This is a lot of Kiss. I need Kiss in smaller doses, I think, than an hour and 18 or hour and 20 minute live set. It's a bit much. If I'm going to see that much of Kiss, I probably would want to actually be in the audience to actually see all the stuff, because a lot of times the music's not doing it for me. So yeah, that's my thought.
I would say, before we go to Josh, the two songs that are considerably better on albums than they are on this album are She and Parasite. They come off much better on albums. They lose quite a bit of their bite on this album, especially She. Simmons is more forceful as a singer on that, and the guitar is much grimier. And Parasite's a sludgy track as well that I really like. So
yeah, I liked She on this album, so I actually put this is one of the best songs on the album. So I must
there you go.
I like the album version better. So let me drink the last of my cold gin here before I get into Kiss. But the Matt, the documentary you're thinking of, I think, is Decline of Western Civilization.
Yes,
Part
that's
2,
it.
The metal years, where they're surrounded by women.
It's ridiculous. Yeah, it's just And you knew that he was like, all right, I'm going to do this interview, but here, let's get these ladies set up over there. That's how we're going to do it.
And so I had a recent Kiss story too that I wanted to tell. So in Oregon, as I think I've mentioned, you can't pump your own gas here. So the gas attendant was pumping our gas, and this was a guy. He was older than us. He definitely looked like he's lived some years. He had some like crazy blonde dye hair job that looked like a mushroom cut, and he had yellow sunglasses on. So he was friendly and pumping our gas, and somehow apropos of nothing, he asked if we liked Kiss, Emily and I. And I don't know how it came up, but
fair question.
It's not that look, Josh. Emily just has a look like she's in the Kiss army.
Yeah. I think the point was that he was going to a Kiss concert later on in the summer, and he wanted to bring that up. So he proceeds to like talk about how he's been a Kiss fan his whole life. I think he starts singing Kiss songs and like doing air guitar a little bit, and just talking about how excited he is about going to see Kiss up in Washington. And I think he had been to Kiss concerts before, but he was definitely a huge Kiss fan. And I feel like that is kind of representative of who Kiss is as a band as a result. It's all about the entertainment, the having a good time. The most famous song, right, is Rock and Roll All Night and Party Every Day. And that sums up Kiss in a nutshell to me. I classify them as like a cotton candy music band. It's really good and sweet, but then it kind of leaves your mind and until the next time you have it and remember how fun it is. My exposure to it was, like John said, from John, and I like a lot of the guitar riffs on this, and I can totally see why they picked Alive as kind of the representative Kiss album, because like Matt said, the theatrical experience is half, if not more, of what this band is all about, and the theatricality and the stage antics and just that feeling that you get, being in a Kiss show. And I feel like this album captures that well. Matt said it's a little long, but I think that's how long a Kiss show would be, right? It's kind of taking you through the whole set, even, going into the encore with them. I think they even say at one point at the end, like, have a good night, we're Kiss, and then the next song is like the encore song. So it really just kind of like flows through that progression of their album, and it's all the hits on here, up to that point. So I can't fault it for that. I love the guitar licks. However, I feel like sometimes their licks sound like other songs that they have. Where did I write? Firehouse sounds like Strutter to me.
Yes.
And so they kind of, can't deviate it. They're not writing like, they're not writing about complex subjects. They're writing about rock and roll women and drinking and having a good time. There's kind of nothing necessarily beyond that. And, but again, that's kind of their MO. So I can't really, I can't really fault them for that.
On Destroyer, they do delve into teenage tragedy in Detroit Rock City. And,
okay.
Love on Beth. And,
oh, yeah,
then,
that's
of course,
kind of a ballad, isn't it, Beth?
Yes,
Yeah.
and then they also dive into the occult with God of Thunder as well a little bit there. So they do genre switch a little bit, but yeah,
Okay.
it's mostly sex and
yeah, yeah,
and rock and
more
roll
sex.
as rock and roll as a concept,
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
like you guys, I kind of enjoy the guitar riffs on a lot of their thing. I'm not sure how well they can actually sing. I feel like do multiple people sing on this
Yes.
album? They do, right? One of them is
3.
clearly better than the other 2, in
So
my
Paul
opinion.
Stanley's the high voice that sings most of the songs.
Yeah.
Gene Simmons is the gruffer, like bass voice. I actually think Gene Simmons has a better voice than Paul Stanley does.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Peter Criss, who sings Black Diamond, and
Okay.
he sings some others. So he also has a voice that a lot of people like. I think Ace, his first song is like Shock Me, I think, later. And Ace is not a singer necessarily, but it's usually some of his best guitar songs. So he
Okay.
usually makes up for it, yeah. So
I
but
mean,
yes,
yeah, it's hard not to like a band that has a song called Cold Gin, though. I mean, that is just like brazen, and I mean, I'm all about some gin, so that's fine by me. Yeah, I enjoy this band. I'm interested to hear those studio albums to see how they compare, since I've never really listened to their albums before. But yeah, it's fun. It's a fun album. It's no Blue Oyster Cult on this batch of 6, but I enjoyed it for sure.
I would be interested. I don't think any of the studio albums are going to change Matt's mind on anything. I would be interested to hear your take, especially on the first 2 albums, because the bulk of this album is those 2 albums, and they are way grimier and way sludgier albums.
That sounds
they're
appealing
not
to me.
nearly as shiny as you would think Kiss would be, which I think is always kind of shocking when people listen to it. I also have to give a shout out to Pitchfork, which I don't normally do, that the guy who reviewed this album for Pitchfork gave a hilarious 10 out of 10 on it, which horrified the Pitchfork people probably more than anything else. And basically it's like, what can I say? This is like everything that's like enjoyable about rock. And I just remember just the sheer disgust of like the Pitchfork listeners for it. So I thought that was, and he wasn't trolling either. So I thought it was a bold review, because that's like the equivalent of like, what is that even the equivalent of, giving a Kiss album a 10 out of 10 in Pitchfork?
Yeah.
It's had to have been horrifying. So,
well, the other thing I'll say too is like I would imagine that that this is a really strong fan base or devoted fan base, right? People
Sure,
that are into
definitely.
Kiss, they'll get up and they'll put the makeup on, they'll do the dress up, they'll buy the dolls, you know what I mean? And they'll follow them around. They'll go, like, gas station guy probably has seen them, 50 times or whatever. It's like one of those, it's almost like a jam band like that, like that devoted cult following. And when you're in the Kiss Army, like that, you feel part of something, and it's like, they probably could have covered that in that. What was that guy that wrote the book about following Fish as well as Insane Clown Posse, like these bands that really draw in. And I bet you could throw Kiss in there as well. It's this communal kind of happening event that kind of transcends the music. And I think it strikes me as being a pretty special thing about them. I don't think I would be a part of the Kiss Army in that regard, but just as an outside observer, like I think that's kind of a cool thing that not many bands can claim that too. And also, I will say, I did see a Kiss cover band several years ago here in Massachusetts, and like it was
Mini
the weirdest
Kiss?
thing. No,
oh, I've seen Mini Kiss before.
no, it was
They
it
were
was not
awesome.
Mini Kiss. It was some other band, and they played this real small dive bar in it was New Bedford, Massachusetts. Wasn't even like in Boston. And the guys, credit to them, they looked just like, they had all the costumes. They had the Kiss sign and lights behind them, and like it was the most like overly done, makeup and costume antics that they had going on. And it was like, it seemed so weird because it was in this tidy, like really middle of nowhere dive bar. So props to those guys. They put on a pretty good set. So.
Yeah, Kiss also strikes me as a band that's fun, a rock band that's fun without being dangerous, like in a way that you could bring your kids to, and it's kind of a like generational thing, like, you know, painting the kids' faces, and like it's this rock music without like necessarily the drugs of like, you know, being strung out, or I don't know, some other
which
like
is
dark
funny
stuff.
because they were considered to be like a satanic band in the 70s, which is absolutely hilarious, like on so many fronts. But
they just seem kind of inoffensive in that way, not necessarily in a bland way, but just like in a way that like it could appeal to a lot of people.
Well, you can see Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley like reaching out to kids and like you know, like embracing that and like making it. It's a good
but
time
that's
had by
80s,
all, you know.
Right.
That's an 80s phenomenon. 70s Kiss was very much like a teenagers and like early 20s.
That's fair, yeah, because they were younger too. But as they got bigger,
those people, you know, had kids and they became the Kiss. But like, it's like Kiss was a definitively teenagers coming of age band. You know what I mean? Like teenagers, college kids, and early 20s. Like that was their initial audience.
Well, are they kind of like an equivalent to Alice Cooper? I mean, there's kind of a lot of crossover there with the theatricality.
I think
and the teenage.
Yes, and I think that they also fill a similar niche for people in the 70s that Van Halen did, where like you hear this band and they're like definitively a part of your teenage years, you know, and that's, I think, a lot of who the Kiss Army is, right? People who listened to Kiss when they were in their teenage years, and that's the real passionate folks. Can I give some later 70s Kiss stuff to check out that we're not going to cover so that you could do it?
Is this the only time we cover Kiss?
I believe it is.
So? Yeah,
I believe so. So I'd like to point out "Shock Me," the song I talked about that Ace Frehley both wrote and sings, is a great one. "Calling Dr. Love" is a great later 70s Kiss song. I also think that Christine 16 is one of the grossest, most hilarious songs ever in the history of rock. So I'd very much like to do that. And I also love "I Stole Your Love" is a great song later in the 70s. We did mention "Hard Luck Woman" too, which is a classic, and I think most famously been covered by Garth Brooks, who kind of brought it back, and it was the top 10 song. I also want to talk, the Black Diamond is covered by freaking everybody. The Replacements cover it. Pearl Jam covers it constantly. There's all kinds of people that do that. And one of the things about Kiss too is they get covered constantly by like modern bands, 90s bands, like everybody's got a Kiss cover. Everybody's got a Kiss cover, which is always to me a testament to them. Like there's always a Kiss song that everyone will play as a cover, and it seems like it's a different song for every band, like what their Kiss song is, which also has always struck me as funny. So,
John, you didn't mention "Love Gun."
"Love Gun" is another great song, and you know, as has been mentioned many times, was designed for literally the chorus to sound like the finish of an orgasm by design, which I always thought was hilarious.
What was the movie where the guy from Dude Where's
Role
My
Models.
Car Role Models explains to his little kid that he's playing "Love Gun"? He's like, all they did
He's
is
explaining
bang
why
chicks.
he loves Kiss. No, he explains what Kiss is to the little boy, and basically
like 8-year-old
said,
kid. I'm
it's a
listening.
song about your like. I think it's like a song about the love gun is, you know, it's your dick and stuff.
You see,
like
the gun
that.
is
So,
your is the gun is his dick. He's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would also say I think Detroit Rock City is a great song. That's another really good guitar lick. You know, Ace Frehley's got some really cool guitar parts. They're not complex, but they're cool, interesting guitar parts.
There you go. And I'll even go so far. I'll end with this. They have an 80s album called Creatures of the Night, which is a really good album. They bring in a Vinnie Vincent is the name of the guitar player they bring in. He's an excellent guitar player. He's only on that album, I believe, and it is a really, really freaking good album. It's Creatures of the Night, is the name of the album. Creatures of the Night. I apologize.
It's their 6th highest rated album on Best Ever Albums. They have a lot of albums.
It's probably a little bit low, Creatures of the Night. I would almost put it in my top 3 Kiss albums, as crazy as
John, rank your top Kiss albums. I'll tell you where they are.
Boy, the self-titled. I'll do the top 3. The self-titled debut is probably my favorite. Destroyer is probably my second favorite, and then Creatures of the Night is probably my third favorite.
The self-titled is his 3rd highest ranked. Destroyer's Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, it's important for me to note Kiss is not one of my favorite bands in the world, but they
Yeah.
are a band that I will absolutely stand for because it's like I feel like the hatred of them has gone so far that a lot has been lost in terms of their legacy, their influence, and how genuinely important they were for like people. It's hard to remember this too. They were a big band for outcasts as well, which I don't think really gets understood in this day and age because they seem so omnipresent popular. But back in the day when you were in like the Midwest or somewhere and there was no MTV, right, and there were very few cool things, you know, and really Kiss is just a bunch of like kind of nerdy, not cool guys who reinvented themselves as rock stars, which I think is why they've always resonated with the Rivers Cuomo types of the world, you know, because So
they also have a song on Creatures of the Night called "Keep Me Coming," which is fun.
That's about right. On brand.
Yes.
Well, Destroyer's number 1, John. Kiss, self-titled, is number 3. Okay. And then Creatures of the Night is 6. In between those, you have Dynasty is number 4.
That's Disco Kiss. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Wow.
That would
Dynasty,
not...
number 4.
Disco Kiss has gotten reinvented as like an album that a lot of people really like, and it's like got credibility, and like Disco Kiss is just not
Is that I Was Made for
good.
Loving You? Is that what that is? Yeah.
Yes, that's the most
track.
famous song. Yep.
Yeah.
But God, the thing I'll say on Creatures of the Night is that maybe my favorite Kiss song of all time is the song War Machine, which is the last song on it. It's a fucking fantastic song. For people that are wrestling fans, it was Taz and ECW's walkout music, and it was it's an awesome fucking song. So Josh, check it out, you'll love it. So